I wanted to talk about how I feel like as you get older, life kind of gets harder. And I don't even know if it's life gets harder or is that it just gets more complex. Like I feel when you're younger and you're trying to figure out what you need to do, it's kind of just you just follow what everyone tells you to do. Like you go to school, you go to uni or college, you get a job. Those are your goals when you're younger. And I feel like that time is easier in a sense. I mean, it's more work, and I'd say it's probably more stressful when you're going through that sort of stuff. Having to find a job, going to school, and hoping you do well enough to get good grades, get a good job. Like, that's all very stressful stuff. But it's also easy in a way that you kind of know what you need to do. Like, you know these are things that you're gonna have to do to have a decent life, so you just kind of you follow them. But I feel like once you actually have those things, once you have a decent job, once you have enough money to pay your rent and maybe get a couple extra things, like once you've kind of got your life set out for you, you go from following the goals or chasing the things that everyone kind of told you to chase to now having to chase what you actually want. And for me, at least, that was a big change. Because I had to actually figure out what I wanted and how I was going to get there. And that's hard because when you go kind of your entire life just chasing the goals or the things other people tell you to go after, changing to a mindset of where you need to go for the things you want is a huge shift. I feel like I've gotten better at it now. There was a while after kind of college where I was just completely lost and I was like, oh shit, I've got a job, I went through school, I was supposed to be happy now, but what the fuck do I do now to make me happy? You know, I had this delusion that, you know, once I achieve these things, then I'll be happy, right? After this next thing, I'll be happy. And part of me almost wants to go back to that. Like, part of me is kind of envious of the simplicity of it all. That you kind of just, I was like happy enough. I don't know if I would say I was like really happy, but I was like happy and content enough. Just kind of having these things that people told me to chase and just chasing after them. Like, I didn't really know better. It was kind of an innocence there, right? I mean, going to college and like getting a decent job and all that stuff, it's things you gotta do, or things are good to chase. I wouldn't necessarily they're bad, but there's like this innocence in chasing the things that people told you to. And now that that's gone, or I can't rely on it, part of me is jealous of the simplicity of that. Like, I was just able to kind of chase these blind goals that someone else told me to do and be happy doing that. But I feel like that's just, you know, you can't do that forever. Nothing lasts forever. That innocence is eventually going to get broken. You're eventually going to want more. You're going to learn that you want more, and that's just the way life is. There was this streamer, Wreckful was their name. They like killed themselves, which is brutal. But they were severely depressed, so they had a lot of mental issues, a lot of mental struggles that they were dealing with. But one of the things that they said, which kind of caught me off guard, was that they had a lot of money because they were like decently successful, and they almost kind of wish they didn't because they had to figure out what their own happiness was. Kind of like what I was talking about earlier. Instead of just, you know, if you're like starting out, I could see as like a streamer, right? It's like, oh, I want to get this many subscribers, this many viewers or whatever. and I want to make this amount of money, I want to make this my full-time job. But once you kind of have it all, the goals, I feel like, become more abstract. Like, as I've kind of got my life pretty well set out for myself at this point, my goals aren't as simple as, get a good job or something like that, right? Like, my goals now are kind of more abstract. I want to build strong connections and strong relationships with people. I want to, work on music and make my own music. And they don't really have the easy, pathway to follow. You kind of have to carve your own way to figure out how to do these things. And it's not just that, it's it's harder to know how to get there. Like, when you're in school, it's like, okay, if I just complete school, I'll get a job, right? It's kind of all set out. The plan's already there. You don't really have to, you just do. You don't really think about what you need to do. But I feel like as I've grown up and as I've matured and learned things, I've realized that, now you gotta figure out what you want, and you have to try and figure out how to get there. And it's not so clear. I think that's the hard part. Is that because it's not kind of all laid out for you, you have to figure out that path. And you don't necessarily know if that path will make you successful or allow you to achieve what you're looking to do. And I feel like that's just the hard part. Life is so much more nuanced than younger me realized or knew at that time. I don't know. It's this weird thing because when you're going through school, when you're looking for jobs, when you're in that stage of your life, it's definitely more stressful, I would say. Like, it's not easy. I wouldn't say it's easy. It's just kind of stressful in a different way. Like, I would say, now that I've got my shit together, my life, my baseline happiness is more stable, but it's almost as if I feel less satisfied with that stability. It's weird. You have to learn to just be kind of more content with what you've got. That's hard because I feel like the human experience, the human condition is always wanting more. Right? Like, we always get used to our current situation. It becomes our new baseline. No matter where you're at, super giga rich people, they always want more because just being rich is their baseline. And maybe that's part of the hard shift, is shifting from a mindset of, oh, I gotta achieve, I gotta get a degree, I gotta get a job, this kind of achievement based mindset, into a kind of acceptance mindset of, I just got to enjoy what I have. Obviously, I think it's important that you work towards goals. That you have some sort of goals or things that you're working on, but kind of more being content with what you have. Because I've definitely gotten sucked into the growth mindset too much, where you're not really content with anything that you have because there's always something greater to achieve. And that's a pretty terrible place to be. The balance is a much nicer place between growth and being content. But that's the hard part. I think that's that kind of sums it all up, is that there's in life, when it comes to kind of achieving happiness or trying to create a better life for yourself, it's figuring out where all these gray lines are. When you're younger, I think everything is more black and white. You see it as, I'll complete school and I'll be happy. I'll get a job and I'll be happy, right? It's such black and white thinking. But as you grow older and you experience more things, you kind of realize that everything is in between. Everything's in the gray. And the hard part is figuring out where you want to be in that gray area. Which is, because it's different for everyone, right? That's why we're all so different and complex, is everyone has a different optimal gray area they want to be in. And it's hard to know where you actually want to be in that gray area. Like, I feel like your experiences are the only things that can really teach you where you actually want to be. It's almost like you have to have an experience that's too far one direction and one that's too far the other, and then you find some like nice middle ground in the middle. And that's how you realize where you actually want to be, what you actually enjoy, where you want to be at. And it's not something that like anyone else, it's not something that you can like learn by just like read, or I mean, you can learn parts of it, I would say, right? You can learn to an extent of like in general what makes you happier and stuff like that, say by reading or researching or something like that. But in the end, it's all super personal, right? It's all super subjective. It's all based on how you actually feel. And so you have to really discover that for yourself. And I think that's why I kind of like harken back to the quote unquote easier or like more innocent days, is that those things were kind of all told to me and I just accepted that. I thought that was the best thing. Once I realized that, there's like kids screaming in the background. Jesus Christ. Once I realized that that's something I needed to figure out, it was like, shit, I'm actually going to have to address my own failings. I'm actually going to have to figure out what I want. That's so much harder. Is that a bird or a kid? I think it's a kid. I can't even tell. Jesus. That's fucking hilarious. Yeah, it's just harder figuring out where you actually want to be and how to get there. I feel like the more conversations I have with people and we talk about issues or ways to optimize happiness or anything kind of like that, I always end up in the same place of, oh, you know, it's like somewhere in between. It's somewhere in the gray area. It's the boring answer, but I feel like it's the truest. Nothing's like so simple. Nothing's that easy to really figure out. It just takes time, which I hate because I want everything now. Even though I know that won't be satisfying, but you're kind of being patient, learning to be patient, that things will just take time. It's something that's hard as well to kind of learn and even accept. I can't even fully accept that now, that things will just take time to figure out. Living by your emotions is a hard thing to do. It's so much easier to just kind of grasp onto what other people project for you, like what other people tell you will make you happy, what society tells you will make you happy. It's so much easier to just kind of grab onto those and blindly follow them. I think the thing I've kind of realized, and you know, even making videos has kind of shown me this, is that when you do something kind of purely on a feelings basis, like if you have that inspiration or that urge to do the thing, and then you're actually able to do it, and of course you can't just like purely go off your quote unquote like feeling motivation. Like you have to put a bit of effort into things too. But when you kind of combine those things together, that's where you can kind of achieve that sense of fulfillment again, that sense of blind joy of just kind of doing something based on how you feel. And so that's something I've started to try and live my life more by, because I feel like that's the only thing that'll actually make me more happy, is to live by how I feel, right? Stop chasing the things everyone else tells you to chase. Stop doing the things people tell you to do, right? I mean, you have to conform a bit, obviously. You can't live 100% based on your feelings. But using your feelings as a guiding principle and using your own self-understanding as your primary kind of evidence is something that I feel leads to a just being happier. Doing things for yourself, doing things for you, and not doing them for other people. I think I'm going to end it here. Thanks for listening.